Hi guys, have you ever wondered about how you should tell people about something? Oh yes, maybe you're very good at telling people about something, but do you know all the verbs and phrases that you can use in order to talk about talking? Well, if you don't know those, then please stay tuned in this lesson because I'm going to tell you different ways of telling something to someone. Don't get too confused. Keep watching the lesson further in case you want to know. My name is Michelle and you're watching Let's Talk. So first of all, we are going to look at a set of verbs that we have with us here. And these verbs are different ways of talking about telling something to someone. For example, telling is very different from explaining, and explaining is very different from advising. But how is that so? If you want to know the meaning, then keep watching with me. Let's start with the first verb. The first verb that we have is to tell something to someone. Now, telling something to someone is very simple. Even if you are just a beginner, you will definitely know the meaning of the word tell, which means to convey a message or to give a message to someone verbally. Verbally means while you're speaking. So, to convey a message. Alright, so now I'm going to tell you two examples of how you should use the verb tell in a sentence. For example, you could talk about your childhood. So if someone is telling you about their childhood, you could say, he told me about his childhood. So I would say, he told me. Now, as you can see that told is not same as tell. Well, that is because tell is a verb and we are talking about the past form of the verb tell, which is told. So he told me about his childhood. Okay, now if somebody tells you about how they passed their exam, how would you say that? You would say, they told me or he told me about how he passed his exams. We often use the word about with tell because we are always told about a particular topic. So, told me is usually used with about. So now you know that telling means to convey a message. Alright, now let's look at the next one, describe. So the first thing that you need to understand is how is describing different from telling? Can you tell me an answer for that? So describing is also telling something, obviously, but with much more information, which means with a lot of detail. So describing is to add detail. So when you're telling someone about something and you want to add a lot of detail to it, that is called describing. Do you want to know how you could use this in a sentence? So you could say that he told me, or sorry, he described to me how hard it was for him to leave his family. All right. So here, maybe the person is telling you a lot of things like he felt homesick when he left his family, he was in a financial rut when he left his family, or he was going through a very hard time, right? So he's describing more than one thing. That's why we use the word describe and not tell. So he described how hard it was for him to leave his family. Okay, you could also say that, could you describe me what you saw? So if you're asking someone to describe a scene, then you could ask them, could you describe what you saw? Which means, could you explain to me in detail, like with a lot of information, what you saw? Another example could be, the doctors described the situation as very critical, which means they gave full details about the situation and they told how critical it was. Okay, now we look at the next verb, and this verb is to report. So when you report something, then you tell about something that has happened, okay? Some existing information. Like this is usually used for crimes and investigation. So the police might want a report from you about something. So if you want to use it in a sentence, of course, you could say that the supermarkets reported a great decrease in sales after demonetization. This means that they are giving some facts and some information. So reporting means to give information or facts. So here is reporting for you, which is a very formal word. And we often use this word with the word witnesses also. You could say that witnesses reported hearing a loud noise before the plane crashed. Now this is again a very formal way of saying something. Maybe you could read this sentence in a newspaper. So reporting is formal and it's often used in writing. Okay, now that's enough for reporting, and let's look at the next word, explaining. Explaining is when you give a detailed view about something. Again, just like describing, explaining means to give a lot of details about a scene. So explaining means to give details about a scene. And to use it in a sentence, you could say that she explained to me how she was losing weight so quickly. So maybe she was giving you a whole description about how she lost weight. Maybe she went on a diet, maybe she was gymming. So she explained to you means she gave you the overall picture about how she lost weight. Okay, now we look at the next one, and that is recounting. So recounting means to recall something, okay? It has the same meaning as recall. In case you don't know, what do we mean by recall? Recall means to remember something from the past, okay? So, for example, we often try to remember things from the past, mostly like conversations, right? So you could say that she tried to recall her conversation with Sam. Or else you could use this new word and you could say that she recounted her conversation with Sam. And other than this, you could also say that they recounted their experience at the vacation, which means that they were telling about their experience at the vacation. They were remembering it from the past. So recounting is recalling, which means remembering from the past. All right. Now the next one we have is advice, which is a very common verb, okay? And at the same time, we often say that I'd like to advise you, okay? So we often hear this, that we want to give advices to people and people want to give advices to us. So giving advice is basically when you do something and you need suggestions from people, okay? So that's what advising is, to give suggestions to people. And to advise someone could also mean to give them the required information, okay? Advising could mean to give required information. Right, so in a sentence you could say that the doctors advised her to go for a surgery, which means that they gave her the required information that she should go for a surgery. And if you think that your laptop cannot be carried everywhere, then somebody might just tell you to buy a laptop bag. And if that happens, you would say, I was advised to buy a laptop bag because it's so hard to carry my laptop everywhere. Okay, now with this, we'll look at the next verb that we have, and that is to communicate. So communicating is very same as telling or describing or reporting. Now this is also very formal, like reporting. Now the only difference here is that communication can happen verbally, which means through speaking, like I'm speaking to you, I'm communicating to you. But have you ever communicated in the written manner? Like have you ever written an email? Well, that is written communication. So communication can be two ways, either it can be spoken or written. But when someone is telling you something, that only happens through words or through speaking. So to use it in a sentence, you could of course say that the news about your removal was verbally communicated to you back in July, which means that someone was told that they were going to be removed from an organization back in July. Now, verbal communication here means that they were told through the speech, okay? Somebody conveyed it to them while speaking that you'll be removed in July. Another example would be, can you communicate to him that we are not really interested in him anymore? Okay, so another example is they communicated with each other via email. Of course, we all love communicating via email, and it's quite useful and it comes quite handy when people are really far away. Okay, so now we have looked at a lot of verbs, which are different ways to tell something. There are certain differences here, as you've seen. Some of them are spoken communication, some of them are written communication, some of them are formal, and some of them are informal. Now we are going to look at some phrases to talk about telling something to someone. And they have some very interesting meaning. Now, this is one of the most common phrases in English, which is to let someone know. So we often say that, let me know when you reach home, which means, please tell me when you reach home. So let me know is a very soft way of asking someone to inform you. So let someone know means to inform someone. And to use it in a sentence, of course, you could say, let me know when he arrives, or let us know when you reach home, because you're concerned about someone. Now, the next one we have is to pass on. And to pass on means to tell the information that you've received from one person to another person, okay? So many a times people give you a message so that you could give it to someone else. For example, if someone calls you over the phone, okay, and they want to talk to your mother, but she's not home. So you would tell them, can I have a message? And they'd be like, yeah, please pass on the message that I want to see your mother tomorrow at 5 p.m. Okay, so this is how you will use pass on, which means to give information from one person to another, or to pass information. With this, we move to the next one, which is to give an account. So to give an account can, again, like communication, be written or spoken, but giving an account is usually reporting. Reporting as in where you're giving a full detailed account about what happened. This is also something that the police requires from you after accidents, after bad incidences. They want you to give a full report of it. So to give an account is to report incidences. In order to use it in a sentence, you could say that he was so shocked after the accident that he could not give an account of what happened. This could be because the person was not in his senses and it was very hard for him to remember everything that happened. And if you want to use it in a more positive way, you could say that she gave an exciting account of her vacation to Spain. Okay? So this is how you use give an account. And the next one we have is to put someone in picture. Well, to put someone in picture means to keep someone informed so that they can understand something. Okay, so maybe there's a whole situation going on and you need to keep someone in the picture so that they can understand what's happening. So to put someone in picture means to help someone understand something. Now, the best example for this would be, let's say you're having your wedding arrangements and your brother is not participating as of now. Maybe he was out of the city and he comes back like a month later and your arrangements are going pretty well. But he doesn't know anything about it. He's like, would you please put me in picture about how you're doing the wedding arrangements? Which means that would you tell me how you're doing the wedding arrangements? And sometimes when you join a new office, you don't know how the people are working there. So there you could say, would you please put me in the picture about how your office runs? Which means to tell me so that I can also be a part of the system. Okay, now the next one is to break the news, break the egg, okay? Break the news means to give a bad news to someone, okay, like the breaking news. Have you seen on the television, whenever there's a news which is, very popular right now and everyone is talking about it, a shocking news, you see that on the screen. At the bottom of the screen, you see it flashing, breaking news. And from that, we have this phrase, break the news. Break the news means to give some bad news to someone. So if you lost your job and you need to tell about that to your husband, you could say, I had to break the news about the loss of my job to my husband, which means you had to tell him about you lost your job, and that's a very, very bad news, okay? And sometimes if you're like leaving the city and your girlfriend doesn't know yet, so your friend might ask you, when are you planning to break it to your girlfriend that you were leaving the city? Okay, now with this, we're going to close the lesson, and in the end, I'm just going to give you one extra phrase, which is to keep someone in the loop. Now, to keep someone in the loop means to keep someone informed. You can often use this in your office if you want that all the information should be given to you. You should tell people, please keep me in the loop about what's happening, about the new developments. All right, great. So thank you so much for having me with you, and I hope that today you have learned different ways of telling people about something. And use all these verbs and use all these phrases to find out what's going on. So thank you and bye-bye. See you soon.